Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's Peter or Mask Momentum here, and today we're going to go over my complete set review of the new Bright Lights set for Flesh and Blood. I'm really excited for this one. I played Mechanologist really early into me playing Flesh and Blood, and it's been a long time since we've had like a dedicated set based around mech. It's actually like the first one since Arcane, and so I'm super excited to see all these new cards and go over them with everybody. So to start us off, we're just going to start at the top and then just go down of, this Fabberry site. And we're looking at Master Cog here. This is going to be the Fable for the set. Obviously, the Fable is legendary. When it's pitched, you can put a Steam counter on an item you control with Crank. I think the only real use of this Master Cog is if you're going to be using it in Max or some builds of Dash. But I'm not really seeing too much play out of this Master Cog, I believe. I usually don't like the Fables that are super playable. I was kind of concerned the last set in Outsiders when the Fable looked really playable at the start, but was kind of glad when it turned up being just a sideboard option, and a very not unique sideboard option either. But looking at some of these heroes, we'll go down the line. We'll start with this Dash IO. Starts with 36 health uniquely, and when you look at the top card of your library, you can look at the top card of your library at any time. I think that effect instantly put me on this could be a really busted hero. And once per turn, you may put a Mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck and play it as though it was an instant, and it costs 1 additional to play. So when I think about Dash, I have to think about all of the 0 and 1 cost items that Dash currently has, and I think a lot of them do give her justice and do give her a lot of things. But personally, as we'll see when we move down to it, I was pretty not excited for a lot of the 0/1 cost items that were printed in the set. I think they were not that too powerful or have very unique effects that I don't know if you're gonna build Dash that way. I think the deck manipulation you can do with the top card is really good. I think you can be able to play a whole bunch of cards that are non-Mechanologist and know when you can boost or cannot boost with those cards, during either one of your turns. Going into your turn, you'd be okay, I can block with this boost card instead of keeping this boost card because I have a non-Mechanologist card on top. You can also play at instant speed. Usually you get the high roll of pitching a blue, playing 3 0 costs for 1 each on top, and then just running away with the game randomly with the pure card advantage that you can get from this Dash. And just seeing the top card of your library is really strong in a lot of areas, and I can't really see different builds for this. I think this is going to be the deck that is going to take the probably either the longest or the second longest to try to figure out. It's not the most here's what you need to do, how you build it type of decks. This is going to be a lot of building to make this deck good or playable in a format. So I am kind of excited to see what comes up with this Dash. Then her weapon is Symbiosis Shot. You only have it if you have Dash, obviously. Action, remove a Steam counter from this and attack. And the only way to get Steam counters if a Mechanologist item enters the arena under your control, and it goes up to 6 Steam counters. So if it has fewer than 6 Steam counters, you may put a thing on this, so it goes up to 6. So you can just play a whole bunch and then maybe attack with some other things that don't have go again and just secure a whole bunch of counters on this, and then you can freely just come up with 2 pretty much every turn besides that, or every time you play a 0/1 cost item, which is pretty good on Symbiosis Shots here. And then the most straightforward aggro deck that I've seen in quite a while of going to the set is to be Max the Hype Nitro. Starts at 40, and once per turn action, you can pay 2 resources to create a Hyperdriver token with 2 Steam counters, and activate it only if you've boosted this turn. And then every Hyperdriver that you control gets Crank. So Crank says, as if it enters the arena, you may remove a Steam counter from it and get an action point. So in the middle of the chain, you can pay 2, and then pay 2, put this on there, Crank, and then basically swing his weapon, which is Banksy, which is incredibly cool. This very cool flavor is once per turn, pay 1 attack. Activate this is when you crank this turn, so you have to crank something with max nitro. And then when this hits a hero, put a steam counter on an item that you control with crank. So basically the engine is like, if you can pay 2 here, crank that hyperdriver, swing this. If they don't block it, you can put the counter back on the hyperdriver that you took the counter off of. That's like the main line I see. But I personally am more interested in playing max nitro with like Hanabi Blaster and just being a pure boost deck that sometimes allows you to, you know, if you have additional resources, pay into his hero ability to get like more hyperdrivers for the next turn to make your turns a little bit better. That's what I want to see from max nitro. I don't think the Banksy is quite good at all, so I want to see what this guy comes in. It is just going to be a pure aggro deck. There's nothing really special. You can probably copy and paste a list of like boost dash from like sets ago before this, and you pretty much will find success with this guy as well. And then we're looking at Tekla Vossen, which I believe is my kind of like sleeper pick of like these 3 heroes. I think he will take a long time and has to have like the correct like metagame for him to be super good, but I'm pretty excited for this character in itself because of the like obviously the legendary like that he gets, which I'll get to in a little bit. But it's 40 health. You can play evos from your banish zone, and then once per turn instant, you can pay 3 and you can play your next evo this turn as if it were an instant, and if you do, you draw a card. So you can play like these evos from your banish zone. There's a mechanic called Scrap in this set to where you can banish cards, and from your graveyard you can banish the evos from there, and then you play them at instant speed. You can also choose to go second with this character and then pay 3 and then play evos from your hand on your opponent's turn. If they just like decide to like, there's a lot of play patterns where you can probably get an evo on your opponent's turn and then draw a card and then maybe activate like the high roll is like activating it twice and playing 2 evos, right? I don't know how like often that will happen, but if you go second and play an evo, then on your turn play an evo, and then you're like 2/4 of the way like in your evo pile, I think like it could be super strong start for him. So I can't really wait to see how this guy is going to be built correctly, and how you will get there, because I think he's really cool. And then his weapon is the Teklo Leveler. When I first looked at this weapon, I was like, this weapon is like pretty bad, because like it upgrades more the evos that you have. A lot of his cards say that. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 or more evos, you have to have an evo for to be able to attack in the first place. If you have 2, it costs 1. It only costs 1 resource. If you have 3, it gets go again, so it's like a 1 for 2 with go again. If you have 4, it's a 1 for 3 with go again. I think the 1 for 3 with go again is pretty good on a weapon, but this takes a long time to set up. But I'm kind of grown on it a little bit more after looking at a lot of the play patterns that he might get into. Being able to play like a 2-cost evo, like swing leveler, play 2-cost evo, pass is like not a bad turn when you're trying to set up for it. And then the single most like cool card that I've probably seen in Flesh and Blood, to me at least, is Singularity, which costs 6, and it's a legendary, so you can only have 1 in your deck. And you can transform your hero, your weapon, 4 evos you have equipped to attack vision into the arena with, and then you with life equal to the hero that transformed from. So if you're at like 26 and then you play Singularity, you just beat at 26, and then the back half of this card is just a line of text, but it's very funny. So he's a Shadow Mechanologist Demi Hero Equipment Evo, which is a lot of words, and he has attack, block, intellect, and health value, which is like we've never seen on a card. And so as an action, you can pay 3 and banish 2 cards from your soul and attack. So to put the cards in your soul, it's just like going to be your hero weapon and the evos that you put under. So notably, if you put like multiple, I believe if you put multiple evos on top of each other, all of them will go. So like your base equipment, the evo, and then if you say you evoed 1 more time, that will be like 3 cards under Singularity in just one of the slots, which is like super powerful. To get even more swings with this Teklo dude. And then whenever you attack with the hero, your opponent discards a card, which is like very good. Your Mechanologist attack action cards go again, so every single thing after you play this, you don't have to boost anymore. You can just play Mechanologist out and they just have natural go again. And then this counts as having 4 evos equipped, so there's a lot of cards that like care about you having 4 evos. And then like we just saw like the leveler, if you have 1, 2, 3, or 4, so it keeps you having to have 4 with this. And then it has Battle Worn on it, so when you block with it. So basically you get attack for 6. You only have 3 intellect, which is really interesting, but there's cards that give you more intellect when you initially evolve into him. But you can play Battle Worn, so you can like block your opponent's attacks like every time they close the chain, or like once per turn, like for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you don't die even if it goes to 0, because like you have an actual life total, and you get to swing 6 until you have no like cards in your soul anymore, which like you can play some like insane like value engine like kind of gaming with this Teklo-Vosin that I'm like kind of excited to see in the future. Of like, I think this is like your main strategy of just trying to get this out, but I'm pretty excited to see what this deck can do. We'll be looking at this to build something in the future at least. And then there's Hyper X3. I don't think this card is particularly good, but if you can banish hyperdrivers from boosting, you can put it under this. And then if you have 3 or more hyperdrivers, you can draw a card. It makes it you have to play 9 hyperdrivers in your deck, and then you have to boost them to make them put into this. And if you like activate like Teklo, it doesn't count as boosting. So I personally think this has like some upside in like the new dash build of like knowing if you're gonna banish an hyperdriver and try to manipulate that way. But not too excited for this card. Could be wrong about that though. And then we have a Teklo Foundry Heart reprint in this set. I was pretty shocked when I saw this. I didn't think they were going to reprint this, but after, it makes a lot of sense because of the secondary price, but also that, you know, Max Nitro is always going to like want to use this card, and having an influx of legendaries back into the pool is pretty good to keep the cost down and allow new players to pick this up without having to like scourge their local scene or go online for it, right? This card's really good. Obviously, I think it's going to be in like most Mechanologist builds. As also, I believe this only comes in non-foil in the set, like when Crown and Tunic got reprint, and now with the Tunic reprint, I believe it only comes in non-foil, so non-foil black border. So if you still care about your cards being foil, you can still get the OG one, but this one will have its own like market being a non-foil. And then we have adaptive plating, which is like pretty interesting. It has module, so you can put it into any equipment zone, but it really doesn't do anything. You can like galvanize, and then if you do, it gets +2, and you can block with it. But I'm not really. I don't think this card is good near say, but it is a very interesting like design of like this could be in any equipment zone. I think they've hinted at like we might get more modular like equipment in the future, and I hope they're better than this card at least. But and then so something in this set, we have like base Mechanologist equipment, and there's basically there's 3 that you can start the game with. It's going to be like these proto base heads, which is like proto bases, which don't have any block value. They're tokens, so they can be played in the limited format. Then there's the Teklo base, which all have Blade Break 1. And then there's this Cogwork base, which all of them have a steam counter on them, and they have different abilities if you take the steam counter off. They're all once per turn instance if you pay 1. This is like you can shuffle a attack action card back. This one gets an extra resource basically. This one your thing gets +1, and this one you get an action point. So these are all the base equipment. So if you're gonna play these base equipment in a lot of your decks, you're trying to think about the next equipment of these Evo equipment that can be put onto it. So this is a pretty interesting design of like having base equipment and then evolving and like putting more cards on top of it. So the next ones these are the best ones, I believe, in my opinion, is going to be these Evo Steel Soul Memories. These majestic ones, they have temper on them, so they block for 3, 2, and then 1. But you really don't want to block the 1, because then to my knowledge, if this dies on top, it also takes the base one into your graveyard, so then you can't like evolve on it again, which you have to keep in mind for a lot of it. And then when this transforms from or into an Evo with a different name, your hero gets +1 intellect, and then if it's a hero, it triggers twice. And then same thing with Soul Processor. If it from or into an Evo, you gain 3 resources. If it's a hero, it does twice. This one is you put an attack with 6 or more from your graveyard and 5th from the top. If it's a hero, you do it twice. Then Soul Tower, you get an action point if it's a hero, trigger twice. So when you play Singularity and you transform all of them, if all of your Evo equipment, like if you have Evo Steel Soul Memory and like Processor, Controller, and Tower, you basically get to get +2 Intellect, make 6 resources, put 2 6 powers, like 5th in the top, and then make 2 action points. And then with the 2 action points and the 6 resources, you can technically swing Teklo twice, making your opponent discard. Because you have the 2 action points, you can attack twice. You have 6 resources, which is perfect to pay 3 into 3 to make your opponent discard 2 cards and attack for 12 on a turn, which is incredibly good, because I don't believe Teklo is going to be doing a lot of damage before you turn into this, so you need to really abuse your turns when you get into this. And then Soul Memory allows you to have 5 Intellect the next turn, which is going to allow you to and then plus everything has a go again. So if you put the 6 powers and you're drawing 5 cards, you could play 6 power, swing with your hero, and you're just doing some insane things. So these are the one I'm super hyped for. I think the other ones that I'm also hyped for is going to be these Evo Sentry base heads. I think you can play a 2-2-2-2 line with all these. You might play 3 of these heads because this headpiece is so good. But these only trigger if you come from an Evo, so it's not when you come from a base. So you have to be coming from this one, or it has to say a different name. So it has to come from this one or when it transforms. But I'm pretty excited. These have Battle Ward on them, and so you can block for 2 and then 1. And so I'm pretty excited for those ones. And then there's some other Evo equipment here. I think these are pretty interesting. I wouldn't be too inclined for all of them. A lot of them have you have to boost, so they're not going to be I don't think I want to boost too much with Teklo Bosun, because if I hit Singularity, you just kind of lose the game on the spot, right? And I don't know if Dash or Max is really going to use these base equipment and using cards to put on there, but they make different you put stuff on the bottom, you make resources, you get something plus attack. This one gives quicken tokens. The Evo Command Center and these all have to do with your weapon. So you could see definitely an OG Dash maybe putting, having the base, putting the new equipment and then getting a whole bunch of items out and then becoming just a pistol monster basically. These all have Blade Break too, so Blade Break 3, so you can just block for 3 on these as well, which is pretty strong. These are going to be your UPF ones. They allow you to attack any player or do a whole bunch of other stuff, so they're not really constructed. And then these Evo Battery Pack and these Evo Buzz Hive and these 2 yellow lines that cost 0, they're just bad. I'm not even going to talk about them. But this is going to be when you're starting for Teklo, his card pool. I'm looking at an Annihilator Engine. If one or more Evos equipped, this gets, if it hits, destroy all cards defending this, and then it'll be a 3 overpower 9 attack with that on hit effect if you have 4 or more. And then Terminator Take is the same thing, goes to 1 through 4, but then when it hits, your opponent discards a card and has 9 overpower as well. War Machine is when it hits, destroy all cards in their arsenal. It has a 9 overpower as well. These are going to be your main, I believe, end finishers when you become Teklo, or you get to have 4 Evos and maybe you're not controlled, but these are going to be super efficient. 3 for 9 overpower is really good rate, but it basically can only happen not second cycle, but very not in the first couple of turns. So you really have to build up for these attacks to be actually even playable. The start, unless you have 2, if you have 2, a 3 for 6 is not good value, right? But a 3 for 6 with overpower is fine, but a 3 for 9 with overpowers, right, is the card that you want to play. So you kind of have to wait so long for these to do anything, right? But I think these are going to be your late game finishers for that Teklo deck, or any deck that wants to get to 4 Evos. I think this is what you might have to play 9 copies of these cards looking forward, with Terminator, Tank, and War Machine being the better of the 6. I think this is the worst one, the Tank being the best one. So then we're looking at these 3 protocols here. So looking at Demolition Protocol, I basically say this is like going to be a sideboard card for any of the Evo decks that want to play against, you know, Mechanologist in itself, and for like the mirrors, because you get to take X, you know, equipment, like any of the steam counters from your equipment, items, or weapons from your opponent, and just like get rid of them. So you can kill like hyperdrivers, you can kill like all that stuff if you have like multiple Evo upgrades. So I think this card is pretty good. It's a 3 for 7 with block 3 as well, so it's pretty, it's like on rate or a little bit above as well, so it is pretty good in of itself. And then if it has Go Again, obviously from Teklo is really good. Prototype Protocol is something, it's like Hanabi, not Hanabi, but Pulse Wave Harpoon, to where it'll take a card from your opponent's hand and make them block with it. I think these attacks effects are really good, especially because I'm trying to extend the game to like be able to play Singularity or like create more Evos. This will really help you like basically take a blue out of your opponent's hand if they have a 1 blue hand, make their turn like super anemic, and so you can like spend a turn to make an Evo, or like do a whole bunch of things. I think this is just really good as well, just to make your opponent like, you can just put like a 2 block or like a 1 block in front of it if your opponent has it, and then make them block with it, which is pretty good. Tax your opponent. Protocol is the same thing with equipment, so if it has -1 counters, you just make them like block this, so you can kill like things with temper or other stuff. I think this is a good mirror card if you're playing Teklo, but I don't know how good this is going to be, but I think it's a solid, like a 3 for 5 blue is like not that bad, and I think a value blues are really hard to come from, and I think this is a good, or like at least a fine value blue. And thing about a value blue is if you're playing like a full on, like I'm just trying to make 4 Evo kind of deck, this gets plus X for X the amount of Evos you have equipped. So this technically can block for like 5. So like a free like Mechanologist block for 5 is like pretty good. Like that's a defensive reaction in of itself. You have to have 1 Evo for it to block 2. If you have 2 Evos, it's basically just a block 3 blue, which is like fine. But when you get to 3 and 4 Evos, this is where this card like really shines. And I think I think this might be playable if you're just trying to play like a full-on Evo deck entirely. We're looking at Heavy Artillery. Defender hero can't defend with attack action cards with cost less than X, or X is the number of Evos you have equipped. Basically, this is going to punish decks that are just playing a whole bunch of attacks, and they just can't block this. So a 3 for 6 unblockable is pretty good if you have a lot of Evo upgrades. This is like the evaluation. I think the blue is really good on this because eventually the game, just a 3 for 4 blue that can, like, if you have a whole bunch of Evos can't be blocked is like really good. I think the secretly, I don't think it's much of a secret, but I think the best like Evo upgrade card is going to be this Liquid Coated Mayhem. So it costs 1 less for each Evo you have equipped, so it can be a free 0 for 6 on red, 0 for 5 on blue, and then it can be a 0 for 4 blue, and then we have 4 Evo equips. And then if you're already on like Singularity, and then you're transformed into this dude, and all your things have Go Again, they just become like 0 for 6 Go Again, 0 for 5 Go Again, 0 for 4 Go Again, which is just like infinitely above rate, which is super good. I think those are like secretly going to be a really good value engine at the end of the like basically the end of the game when you transform. And then Mechanologist Strength is also something that I'm looking at. It is like a 3 for 5 red that gets plus X, where X is the number of EVs you control. So if you have 4, it's a 3 for 9, which is just like, as I said before, 3 for 9 is like insane value. The blue can be a 3 for 7 as a blue, and then that also has Go Again if you're transformed, which I think all these Evo upgrades, like obviously it's going to take an insane amount of time for you to like get to 4 and transform and like do all these other stuff, but I think if you can get there, you can survive. I think you're just going to start outvaluing your opponent so heavily that you can, in like a mid-range or or versus a mid-range or control deck, I think you're just going to have so much value that you can overwhelm them entirely. Now we're looking at a lot of these items. These are going to be more of your like dash items that you're going to play, but you can basically play them in all the other ones. But the new Dash IO is going to be the one mainly in the set that are printed for. we're looking at grinding gears. This one's the one, they all have, a lot of them have crank on them. All the majestic ones have crank, and they all enter with 1 steam counter. And then you can remove it for crank. And at the start of the turn, you remove a steam counter, and then for an action, the target hero destroys the top card of their deck, so you can technically mill 2 cards from them. I don't know how good that specifically is, but being able to mill cards, and it's also target hero, so you can mill yourself if there's some value if you don't want a card on top. But it does cost a whole action, so you do need to, like, if you can crank, do it, but there's a lot to this card that you need to set up for. But I mean, if you let it go there and then you're playing it, like, technically you can, like, mill them 3 to 6 cards if you have extra action points, which is pretty good, I want to say. Like, if high octane turn, play this, mill them 4 cards, like, make them also get into fatigue range, which would be really good. And maybe in, like, more mid-range build. Prismatic Lens enters a steam counter once per turn, instant. So this is instant. Reveal the top card of your deck. Put a mechanologist item of the same color from your banish zone on top of your deck. Yeah, unplayable. Put a mechanologist item with cost 0 from hand onto the arena. So this is going to let you cheat out items as well, just to get, like, more items out there. Citadel, put this on the bottom of your own deck. Choose an equipment if it can't defend this turn. It's going to help you, like, play against Teclo Borson, but in certain equipment that have, like, the brute one with intimidate, and that will help you out. TikTok Clock, when a mechanologist attack action card hits a hero, destroy this and 2 other items in the arena, deal X damage, where X is the amount of damage destroyed this way. I think, like, unblockable damage is really good. I don't know how good a lot of these items are going to be. I'm pretty spiteful for them, because like, non-blocks are really, really hard to evaluate if they're not doing something incredibly good, and I don't think these are super, super good currently. Fuel Injector is you can put this on the bottom of your deck and gain a resource. Medkit, you can put it on the bottom of the deck and gain 2 life. Steam Canister, you put them on the deck and put a steam counter on something with crank, so you can keep things alive. They're all blues, which are perfectly fine. Reverse Script, action cards get -1 while defending your mechanologist attack action cards. This is pretty good because you could, like, come in with, like, 3 with an on hit, they block for 3, and then you can, like, instant this out with the new dash. You can see that happen. Penetration Script. Your mechanologist attack action cards get +1, which is really good. Same thing, you kind of, like, bump your stuff up instead of minusing your opponents. And then this is your stuff gets +1 on this one, so you can block for higher. I think the scripts are the best items. Just, like, the little bit of value gets you very far. Backup Protocol Red, you can destroy this and return a red mechanologist attack action in your graveyard to your hand. It's the red, yellow, and blue one. All of them do the same thing. I think that the red one is, like, incredibly good in like, limited, to where, like, you can block with, like say you have triple red, like, blue in your hand, and then you're just like, okay, I can block with some of the reds, like, maybe block with all the reds, pitch the blue to get back a red, and then attack with the red. So you can, like, basically make, like, a 1-card hand be, like, a 2 to 3-card hand, which is pretty good. And then Boom Grenade, I've had a lot of talk about this one. This is the one where if something hits, you destroy, deal 4, 3, or 2 of them, depending on if it's red, yellow, or blue. I think this card is probably one of the best items, but it is super aggressively slanted. So if you're going to play this, you're basically playing, like, an aggressive deck, or a deck that will pump over the top to get the value out of the Boom Grenade. Or if your opponent doesn't block something with dash, and you can flash this in, or you play this as an instant and then, like, boom, deal 4 damage to them. It's pretty good. I think especially if you can get it to where you attack with something, and then you play Boom Grenade from the top and crank it to go to 0, it hits, deals 4 to them, and then you get another action point. That's where this card's really going to shine, and I can see the hype around that specifically. But if you're ever playing this from your hand, I'm not, like, super inclined to think that it's super good. Dissolving Shield comes in with 3 steam counters, and you can prevent The next 1 damage will be dealt to you. If it has no steam counters, destroy it. And then the other ones get 2 and 1. I think blocking 1, this is like good against Kadachis or something like that, or like breakpoints if you block 3 and then get the 4th one. Not too hyped on this one. Hadron Collider is, you can, whenever you boost an attack, you can destroy it, and the next attack it's plus X for the X amount of steam counters on it. So this one I think is probably the best aggressive item in this set, to where you can play the 1 for 4, and then, like, the next thing will get plus 4, plus 3, or plus 2, depending on what it is. And then I think you can, like, attack with something, crank this in, like, to get yourself another action point, get the next thing plus 3 is, like, pretty good for a, just like a random red card in your deck. Mini Force Field is going to get Ward X for the amount of steam counters on it. It comes in with 4, so it's going to block for 4, 3, or 2, depending on what pitch it is. And it also has crank, so it can go a little bit lower as well. Force Field is pretty good if you can just like invest into blocking, but Warden itself will always pop depending if they do 1 damage or like 9 damage. So you have to be really conscious of like with ward effects and when they can get popped and where they can get popped. Then Overload script enters with a steam counter. Your mechanized action cards get overpowered. I think overpowered is a really good keyword. Attacks get go again. This script is really good to like keep cards in your deck and not have to boost them all away. And then when this hits, puts the bottom on your deck, your action cards get this to allow you to not get fatigued out. I am kind of wondering about this limited set because there's so much boost cards and like items. Like, I wonder if you're gonna run out of cards in your deck very easily, because I've seen a lot of cards that are recycling, and I think that is something I'm like keen on seeing in this set, to where if you're boosting a lot in limited, you will run out a lot of cards very quickly. So we'll have to see about that one. Hyperdriver gets reprinted in the set because I mean, you just have to, because there's just so many cards that care about Hyperdriver. Hyper Scrapper is an interesting blue. As additional cost to banish it, you can banish cost to play. You can banish X items from your graveyard, and it attack gets plus when this attack gets plus X for the amount of cards. And then if 3 or more Hyperdrivers are banished this way, you get 6 like resources, and they just go again. So this is like incredible if you can get 3 Hyperdrivers in your graveyard, but they can't be tokens, because the tokens don't go to the graveyard. They just like disappear from play. So it has to be like 3 actual Hyperdrivers need to all go to the graveyard. But if it does, this is like plus X, gain 6 resources, go again on a blue, which is like insane, right? Like you have to pitch in for the X, right? Obviously, but say you pitch like double blue, play this, get 6 more resources, go again. This comes in for 8, go again. Like, I can see a lot of potential with this card if you want to build around it. Then we have Scrap Trader, which is Majestic, where you can scrap twice and then gain 2 for each card scrapped. And this card is pretty good in Teklo, the Teklo dude. Being able to play this, scrapping 2 things, having 4 resources, if you have blue in hand, and if you scrapped one of the blue equipment that costs 4, you can just play it at instant speed with Teklo, draw a card, arsenal. Pretty good. Pretty high on the Scrap Trader. I think it's pretty good into that deck as well. Then we're looking at some of these scrap attacks. This one, if you scrapped a card, it gets Overpower. 3 for 6 Overpower. This is a 1 for 5. It has Galvanize, and which Galvanize, if you defend, you can destroy an item, and it gets plus 2, so they can block for 4. All of them do block for 2, so it's either 2 or 4 block. And if your item has control this turn, action cards with -1 while defending this. So if you like Hyperdriver dies and then you attack with this ratchet up, then you're looking at like everything gets -1, and this comes in for 5. It's pretty good. Scrap Hopper, 0 for 3. If it scraps a card, you get a Quicken, so you can use a 1-card hand attack for 3, make a Quicken, and then kind of set up. Or if you have extra action points, this is pretty good to have this go again. Then you get the next thing, a Quicken token, so you don't have to like boost or anything like that. Soup Up is going to be 0 for 4. If an item has been destroyed, it gets go again, and then Galvanize, you can block for 4. This is 0 for go again if something has died. So if you can attack with this if you've hyperdrivered something and then that has died and then it's 0 for 4, go again, and then you don't have to boost on this card. It's pretty good. Or just a 0 for 4 is always going to be pretty good value no matter what. There's this tuned card. If an item has been destroyed, this gets overpowered. It's a 2 for 6 on this one. Also can block for additional effect. There's Cognition Field, which is just a Mechanologist block for 3, but it can become a 5 if you destroy an item. Infused Alloy is the strictly worse version of Soup Up, but it does have Galvanize, but it is 0 4, but cannot gain Go again. Infused Titanium is a 3 for 7 on his red, and then it can block for 4 if you destroy an item. Junkyard Dog is a 3 for 6 with Scrap, and if you scrap it gets +1. So, but it also blocks 3, so it could be a 3 for 7, or a 3 for 7 and 3 for 6, or it can be a block 3. So like it's more flexible than this one technically, because it will always base block for 3, but this can go to 4, but you have to sack an item, which I don't know how good. Like, I don't know how many random items we're just gonna have laying around for like this to be good. So Scrap Compactor is 0 for 3 scrap that blocks for 3, and if it attacks and scrapped a card, you play an Evo as an instant. So it's pretty interesting because if you play the Evos in an instant, some of them have additional effects. I think a lot of like the ones that I'm not really too keen on are the ones that, like, say if like when it's equipped something gets Go again, or when it's equipped you gain something and stuff, and that's like one of the cards that are able to really get you value from those. Is this Compactor of making the next thing be able to play as an instant. There's Scrapped Harvester, which is a 3 for 6 if you scrapped. You can put a counter on item control with Crank. Scrap Prospector, and when it attacks and you scrap a card, you gain a resource, which is also a 0 for 3. Then we're looking at some of these Majestics down here. This is Heist. It's going to be a 2 for 5 boost. When it hits in here, you can put an item with cost 0 for 1 for your banish from any banish zone into the arena under your control. So if your opponent has like boosted some items, or if you've boosted some items in this hit, you just get a free 0 or 1 cost item from your banish, which is really good. But it is a 2 for 5, which is a little bit under rate, but it does have a boost or Go again. Maximum Velocity is reprinted in the set, and is, instead of a super, it is now a Majestic. So this is a good one of those good reprints, because this is going to be one of your good finishers in like moving on in the set, and a lot of people will need this card in the future instead of in a set that was a little underprinted like Arcane. As well, I think this is the first like shift of rarities in this game as well. Moonshot is going to be another finish. Is going to be one of your finishers for specifically the Max Nitro deck. You can only play it if you've boosted, and you have to destroy X hyperdrivers you control. And whenever it attacks, you get +3 for each hyperdriver you destroy. And if it has 10 or more power, it gets overpower, and it costs double X. So you have to pitch a lot into this. But you can destroy a whole bunch and make this a pretty big finisher. I wonder how good this card is going to be, especially in the max deck, because basically you're playing Velocity and this Moonshot for your finishers. I want to see how good that is. Steel Street Hoons is a 3 for 3 boost, and if an item you control has been destroyed, it gets +2. So it could be a 3 for 5 boost that can block for 2 or for 4. I'm not really hyped on this card. Twin Drive, like when this got released, there's a lot of cards that got released, and this got released, and I was like, this is the best card I've seen in this set so far. And I'll say that specifically on the reason it's a 2 for 5 with double boost. So double boost doesn't really help you, and you have to indicate when you want to boost. So you can't like boost one, look at the top card, do I want to play this in instant speed, and then boost the second one with dash. But specifically cards that like have additional effects, like the one gives you action points from Arcane, or specifically Maximum Velocity, which only cares if you've boosted 3 or more times this turn. It doesn't care about how many cards. This is a 1 card double boost into this, so easy 4 cards. So you would always have to have pretty much like a 5 card hand to play maximum velocity like most of the time, but now you can actually play maximum velocity on a 4-card hand if you have Twin Drive, because you get to play Twin Drive, Double Boost, play 0 cost, then activate Tech Low, make the extra resources come with maximum velocity for like a 17 or 18 damage turn, depending on like the 0 cost, and off 1 blue, and that's incredibly powerful 4-card hand. We're looking at Magic Lock Wave. Your target hero chooses X equipment they control. You choose one from among them, and they must block with this equipment if able. It's triple X here. I don't know how good this card is going to be, but it does snipe certain like temper or that kind of equipment. But you already have a lot of cards that do that, so I don't think you need to spend an entire card just to do that. System failures are good. Remove all steal cards from target equipment, item, or weapon, and if 2 or more reveal this way, it deals 2 damage to the controller. So you can basically kill an item from your opponent and deal 2 damage to them. It's pretty good. I don't know if this card's gonna be really played, but it seems pretty good, but not too good. Bench X acknowledged item cards with 0/1, then return them to on your thing. So it like resets all your items. Which allows you to like get a whole bunch of items and then have 0 counters on them, and then reset all of them so they get more value, which can be really good, but this is super situational, so I wonder how good this card can be. Fabricate is a card that I've gone back and forth on saying if this card is either good or terrible. It is the first Mechanologist instant, costs 0, and it choose 2 like Art of War. You can equip a base equipment with Proto in its name from your inventory. So say you use the Blade Break base equipment and they just died, or like somebody makes you block with it, and then you have like Temper and then it destroys itself. You can then get a Proto and then re-put on a lot of your equipment. So that's going to help you a little bit. Evo permanents get +1 defense this turn, which is pretty good. And then put this under an Evo permanent you control, so it gets more swings. And then you can banish an Evo from your hand if you draw a card. I think the banish one and the base equipment getting Proto is like what I primarily want to use this card on. The +1 on the Evo permanents allow you to get over like Dominate a lot of the time, and sometimes if you you just need it for one of them, putting it under an Evo permanent is not a bad thing, because you can get additional value with the more cards under certain Evo equipment. So I think this has a lot of flexibility. In practice, I wonder how good this card specifically is, but I am hopeful this card is good, and I think as a facilitator, it is fine. Especially if you need to block with your Evo equipment, like especially the Temper ones very early into the game, and sometimes you need to block it, or like something really, really bad happens, and this can get you back at Proto to restart the cycle of getting more Evo equipment, which can be really good. Bull Bar is going to be a 2-for-5 boost, and if you have a Hyperdriver, it gets Overpower. Underrate, but Overpower is pretty good. 2-for-5 again, but if it hits a hero, remove all steam counters from an equipment or item they control. Underrate, but pretty good in mirrors. And then this limited set, Big Shot is a 3-for-6, but if you boost it 2 more times this turn, it gets +2, so it could be 3-for-8, which is above rate, but you do need to boost 2 more times. So if you have like 2 0 costs, you can play this off of blue, or if you have, pitch 2 cards. If you have a 5-card hand, you can pitch 2 cards, coming with 2 boosts, and then this at the very end, and it could be a very good turn for you. Then there's Burn Rubber, which is a 3-for-5. You boost it 2 more times this turn, it gets +2, and can't be blocked by equipment. So a 3-for-7 that can be blocked for equipment is pretty good, especially because they probably already blocked like 1 or 2 of these boosts following from hand. This is a 3-for-5. You boost it 2 more times this turn, it gets +2. When this hits a hero, gain control of an item they control. Stealing items is pretty good. Gigawatt is your next Mechanologist attack. It's +4. It's 1-for-4 and 1-for-3, 1-for-2. Doesn't really do any additional effects, but it does a nice like pump for Mechanologist. Firewall is an interesting block. If it defends, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an Evo, you can put it, you leave it on top of your deck. Otherwise, you put it at the bottom. For decks that like really need to find Evo equipment, this is like this is gonna be really good. This can turbo you into it, and it also blocks for 4, which is pretty valuable. 0 to 50 is a joke on 0 to 60. You'll get a ticket for that because most US it's like 45 miles per hour. So if you go to 50, usually you don't get pulled over, but if you go to 60 and 45, you always get pulled over, which is like the funny joke here. It is underrate because the 0 to 60 is 0 for 4 at red, as 0 to 50 is 0 for 3 at red, so it's kind of funny. It does not have an additional like effect for being a 0 for 3 red, so this probably is not going to be the most playable card, but is a facilitator if you need a lot of zeros. Razzle Dazzle is 1 for 4 with boost that has no additional attacks. There's a Full Tilt, which is 2 for 5 with boost. This is me every day playing League of Legends, playing full tilted. Gas Guzzler is a 3 for 6 with boost. Doesn't have an additional effect. And then they reprinted Crankshaft in this set. Crankshaft was pretty good in these other Hyperdiver decks, and if it gets banished from boosting, you put a steam counter on a Hyperdriver. Allows you to keep Hyperdrivers for longer to just do these insane turns. Is an underrated card, but is a good facilitator if people like to get in there. And then we have Big Bertha. Big Bertha. A 3 for 6 boost, which has the same thing. If it gets banished from boosting, you can put a steam counter on Hyperdriver control. So now this allows you to play a lot of cards. I think you're always gonna, like, if you're playing a Hyperdriver deck, you're definitely playing blue Crankshaft and blue Big Bertha. So there's like 6 cards, and then if you want to extend a little bit, I think the reds obviously are going to be the better ones. I don't think you want to play the yellows because the yellow 2 for 4 and yellow 3 for 5 are like pretty bad. But the red ones are kind of passable on like are kind of passable to run, and you might just need quantity of cards in your deck to hit these from boosting, and it's boosting and not banishing. So the tech low banishing 2 cards from the type of library doesn't trigger Crankshaft or Big Bertha, something to watch out for in this set. Jumpstart is also another card that's getting reprinted. It's going to be a 1 for 5 that costs 1 less to play. It's a 2 for 5 that costs 1 less to play if you have a Hyperdriver. Good in the Hyperdriver decks being another 1 for 5, like 0 to 60, not 0 to 60, but Zipper Hit. Rev Up is a 3 for 6 or a 2 for 6 if you own a Hyperdriver. A lot of these Hyperdriver cost 1 less to play type of cards are just like other mech cards, but worse, but become that card if you have a Hyperdriver. So I'm not like, it makes sense because like you can't be printing like the same exact cards all the time. These have to have additional stuff, but I mean, it's basically the same card, but like worse if you don't have a Hyperdriver. Data Link is a 0 for 3 boost, and when it hits, you opt 1, which is pretty interesting. Being able to opt 1, set up your cycle. Dive Through Data is a 1 for 4 boost if it hits opt 1. And then Springload Rocket is a 0 for 3 boost. If an item or equipment was banished from boosting, it gets +1. So if you're banishing equipment specifically, this becomes a good card. Dumpster Dive is the same thing. It's a 1 for 4 with boost. But if you banish an equipment, it becomes a good card. So there's a lot of situational like cards that become good in CC if like you do a certain effect, but you'd rather just play like the already consistent one that we have. Expedite is 0 for 3 with boost. If it hits, you can put an item with 0/1 for your hand onto the arena. I think Dash will sometimes get overloaded by drawing a whole bunch of items, so this can help you play them without ruining your action point or ending your turn. Met EX is a 1 for 4 that does basically the same thing as Expedite if it puts onto the battlefield. Outpace is a 1 for 4 boost that can't be blocked by equipment. And then Lay Waste is the 2 for 5 version that can't be defended by equipment. I think these could really like get a whole bunch of damage in, especially if people are trying to only have equipment left. Say they block with 4 cards, you play one of these, they only have equipment left, so you're just dealing 4 or 5 damage, which is pretty good. Fender Bender is 1 for 4. It gets plus X for the X of the number of time equipment defending it. So it gets better if equipment is defending this. Panel Buster is Panel Beater is the same. Gets plus X for the amount of equipment defending it. It's a 2 for 5 version. Underloop is a 1 for 4 at red. when it hits put on the bottom of your owner's deck. And then Overloop is the 2 for 5 version of that same, another reprint from Arcane. There's a lot of reprints from Arcane in this set, or like other sets that I acknowledged, but thematically you need cards like this in your limited set because they're all mechanologist cards. So, but it is just another reprint into the field. This is a common though. And then we're looking at some of these pump spells, this Gas Up, Quickfire, and Recharge. Gas Up is a 1 for 4, like the other card that we saw earlier. It's a 1 for 4 that blocks, gets +4. Next attack you boost this turn gets +4. And if you have a Hyperdriver in your Banish Zone, you can put it onto the arena. This is pretty good. I think you can play this in a lot of different decks. Gas Up is mine that I like. Quickfire is 1 for, if you have a Hyperdriver, it's 1 for 4, and the next thing it's there. It's another one of those like cards that's like, there's this, but there's also this. If you have a Hyperdriver, it becomes that same card. It's just like literally the worst version. Recharge is a 1 for 4. Put a Steam counter on a Hyperdriver you control, so it keeps the Hyperdrivers, keeps you going, and it's really good. I think, is this the same girl? I wonder if this is the same girl. I don't know. Both of them are really good. But 1 for 4, put a Hyperdriver onto the battlefield or put a counter on it, which are both pretty good effects if you want to run pump spells. The thing with pump spells is it does not allow you to, a lot of hands won't allow you to play maximum velocity, so that is something that you have to think about if you're going to put in the pump spells, if you want to play maximum velocity or not. And then we have Tectonic Force Field. If it defends an attack with Overpower, it gets +2. So this is going to be a little bit better against the Overpower cards. So you can block for 5. It could be like a free block for 5, which is pretty good. But it is just a normal block for 3 at red, which is pretty bad with no additional text, really. Token Hyperdriver in the set. And then now we're looking at cards that are not Mechanologist cards, but they're in the set in the expansion slot, which I kind of do really like. Expansion slot cards, you can't play them in limited, and it allows them to print additional cards to CC and give a little cards here and there to certain classes without having a dedicated set to it. Looking at Shriek Razors, which is the new Assassin one, Assassin Arms, you can attack, react, target attack action card, defending it gets -1. You get to destroy it, and it has battle worn 1, and then you can bring it back with 2 silvers. The bring everything back with 2 silvers like archetype and assassin is pretty cool with all the contract. I think this is pretty good. I wonder if you play this over the arms that you're already playing. Already Dead, I believe, is going to be played in pretty much all the assassin decks. I think it's pretty good. 2 for 6 contract. Your contract action opponent's non-attack action cards, and you do take a silver. But when it hits the hero, bench the top card of their deck and a defending card, and you can choose the defending card, I believe. If they block from the equipment and you like pump this or shred something, you can banish their equipment, which is pretty good. I'm just saying. I think if you ever see Already Dead, you're just never blocking, or if your opponent still has like 2 additional cards and you know they're in like Azuri, like something, and this could be it. I don't know if I remember blocking with an equipment that I need for the rest of the game, because this is, yeah, that's pretty good. Smashing Performance is 3 for 6. When you attack, draw a card, discard a card in Brute, and if it's 6 or more, you destroy a random item in the arena. There is a lot of controversy when this first got revealed. I'll say that you can affect the cards that are in your deck, but you cannot affect you rolling a dice. So I like this card if you are playing Brute versus Mechanologist. Tectonic Rift, you make X Seismic Surge tokens. It keenly with Anathos, you can't make Anathos can't get the buff off of this because it's not a 3 or more. I don't think this card is going to be played, but if you want to make a whole bunch of Seismic Surge tokens, go at it. Wax Off, so there's a card named Wax On, which if you've played a Wax On this turn, create a Zen State token, and then you get a Wax Off, which is a very funny meme. Create a Zen State token. Zen State tokens prevent 1 every single time that you would be dealt damage. You prevent 1 of them. I think people think that you can play Turtokatsu. I don't think Turtokatsu is even good with this card, because you had to play both wax on and wax off for you to create the Zensei token, and it only blocks for 2 as a defensive reaction, but it is a 0 cost blue, so you can swing Kodachis. Emboldened Blade is where a warrior, you turn a face down card in an arsenal face up. As a defensive reaction, you destroyed it. Your weapon attack gets +1. You have to extend an entire card to bet that your opponent has a defensive reaction. If you don't know, I mean, it is a 0 blue that blocks for 3. I know Warrior really struggles with their blues. All the blues are pretty bad in Warrior, and this is one that is decent, I'd say. Intoxicating Shot is a Riptide specialization. I'm not going to talk about it because you don't need to. Sonata Phantasmia is double X Viscerai specialization. Create X rune chant tokens. If X is 6 or greater, target hero discards 3 random cards. So to get it to be X is 6 or greater, you need to pitch 4 blues. So this has to be your arsenal for them to discard 3 cards. So I never really think about this card ever being casted for that much. But you can just make like X amount of rune chants. Like on turn 0, you have like triple blue. You want to filter your hand, arsenal the last like red card in your hand. Make 3, like pitch 6 into this, make 3 rune chants. Pass is like not a bad option. I think like OTK Vis, like playing can come back in LL format, and I think you would play this in that deck because it does make rune chants, but I'm not really thinking of this as like my facilitator, like this will always make rune chants, right? This is a block 3, so it is like kind of free, but this isn't a good way to make rune chants, because it's like paying 2 for 1 rune chant is like pretty bad. Especially because you have to pitch like multiple blues into this, and then you're looking at 3 blues, then you're like your blue quantity later isn't going to be that good. Like that's what I'm thinking. I think you still play this in certain decks, but not a powerhouse at all. Contest the Minefield is the wizard one from this set. Was kind of disappointed this wasn't like just a strict like Kano card that did damage, but it is pretty interesting. I think this is more of an Ice Center card that you want to play. All heroes get -1 because you want to play it on their turn, and then at the start of your turn you destroy it. So you want to play this like your opponent like decides to pass, you play this, they only drop to 3, you get to drop to 4 on your turn because it destroys the start of your turn. So at the end of your turn you get to still drop to 4. You can try to win turn cycles like this. Doesn't do damage. You need to be able to winning boon, you had to have Tunic up, so, and there's a lot of cards I already want Tunic for when I'm playing, so it's pretty interesting. I think this card is really good. Phantom Tide Maw. Whenever a Lucius card you control is destroyed, you can put a +1 counter on this. This also has Phantasm as an aura, and also has Ward 1. I think this is better if you can play Luminaris specifically. I think this, like, I think you might still be able to play this in like, you know, the Iris versions of like New Prism, but I do think this is more of like a LL format card, or like a Blitz card where you can flash this in when your thing gets popped, and then you can swing it with Luminaris after getting an extra action point off your boots, which is pretty powerful. It's also a blue 0, and it's an instant, like to note, so it's pretty good. I think this card is pretty good. Then one of the most hyped cards coming into the set for Dromai. You're never playing this in Phi, so don't worry about it. But as Dromai, you get draw a card. If you're Royal, it said draw 2 cards. Then you have to pitch 2 red cards, and if you don't, you banish your hand. But if you're playing like Redline Dromai, you basically get to play the Royal Hat, and then you get to draw 2 cards, pitch 2 red cards, and get 2 Ash. And like filter a little bit, which is pretty good. I think a lot of the time when I was playing, I played a little bit of red Dromai. I always struggled like actually getting a lot of Ash or like maintaining a lot of Ash, and this allows you, like, sometimes in the game you have to block and then like use like a 0 dragon, and then you don't have like, you don't want to take a whole bunch of like damage to like keep it hard to like to keep a card. So this allows you, this is like, it's technically -1 card because you play this, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and then you pitch 2. So like, it's fine. You get to make 2 resources off of this card basically. So you go to like if you have a 4-card hand, you play this. You have a 3-card hand, you draw 2, just like pitch 2 reds, and then you make 2 resources. So this basically pitches for 2 resources. It gives you 2 ash, which is pretty good, I'd say. I think this card, I think we'll see a lot more dedicated red line Dromai, although I will firmly believe that Big Dragon Dromai will always be the better version of Dromai. Speaking of another Dromai card, they get 2 this set. They get Dust from the Chrome Caverns. This is the material one that you can put under a Chromai, and then the Chromai doesn't have Phantasm. I know back when I was playing Oldhim for PT3, some of the times they would use these materials to put under, like, Dromai would do this for against Oldhim. For it to be Chromai specifically is very good. Chromai is probably your best dragon in the game. If like you're not thinking of like the really big dragons that have additional effects, and like, yeah, Chromai is just insane with this. Like, just 3, get an action point, and like you can't pop this is just, yeah, it's like the thing with Chromai is like you could, if you had 2 poppers in your hand, you could pop it, but like now this is like a 0 for 3, so you like either taking 3, you're blocking with a non-popper, or if you're blocking with a popper, it doesn't get the value of the popping, and then now it's like, all right, you still have to have 2 more poppers to like stop the next 2 dragons as well, which is pretty insane. This card looks beautiful. Warband of Bologna, I don't know how to say it, but it's light warrior equipment head. It has temper, so it blocks for 2 within 1. On action, you pay 2 and you destroy it. The next time you attack this turn, you can charge your hero's soul. For the yellow card, charge this way, you can draw a card and have go, and then it has go again, obviously, when you activate it. But it is one of those cards to where you're like, okay, well, you pay 2, and then if you have a 0 for 3 that charges, you can like redraw if it's a yellow. I know a lot of the Bolton lists are like more yellow centric because there's the Soul Flare cards that like if you charge it, you get additional effect, and they're all yellows. This is like going into the yellow. I think trying to move Bolton into a more mid-range like aggro build that is trying to trade damage and play a whole bunch of yellows and red and not like pitch for any cards is a lot better than making Bolton a 30 damage combo deck that doesn't actually kill your opponent. But this, I think mid-range Bolton will always be bad if people can say no blocks, is like the one problem he'll always have. This is a Shadow Instant Slay. Destroy target angel ally as Shadow. So if you're playing against like New Prism and you're a Shadow character, you can sideboard these in, and then if they want to ward 4, you can just like instantly kill this, so it technically does 4 damage if you're killing something. And then also it's like the angels don't have Phantasm, so this is a way to get rid of them without having to deal damage to your opponent and trigger ward, or get them the value of like triggering ward. And then lastly, something that I was like pretty surprised about this getting reprinted, but I think a lot of people when they get into Flesh and Blood, or they're critics about Flesh and Blood, is that like Tunic is like a $200 card, and just throwing another reprint, hopefully this makes the card go down. It is another black, like I believe it's another black border non-foil Tunic reprint, like the same in Crew. So hopefully more people can get Tunics if they don't already have Tunic. I know if I open one, I can just give it to my friend who just started playing the game, which I'm pretty excited to do. So hopefully I can open one of these to give him a Tunic, or give one of my locals that don't have a Tunic a cheaper Tunic than one of the OG ones that are, a pretty high amount if you're just getting into the game. But that's going to be my set review for Bright Lights. I'm pretty excited about this like new set. There's a lot of cards that are getting like reprinted, or just like another kind of like fluff material in them, but it's perfectly fine. I am the most excited for this Teklovosin hero. I think Dash has the highest upside of all 3 of them. I put a tweet out that I thought this was going to be the first character that LLs, and I do think this deck is really good, but I do think your worst matchup is probably Icelander, which if Icelander rotates, you don't have that matchup, and then it would be fine. So I think post ProQuest season, I think this deck gets a lot better, but I want to see if people find a build or if I find a build that is like actually good with this character. Same thing with dash. I'm just waiting for somebody to be like, this is how you build this deck, and I'll be like, okay, this looks like a lot better than every deck that I've built so far. And then Max Nitro, I just know this like deck is going to be like an easy aggro deck to build, and I think we'll see success. I will say that I wonder if having this hero ability of once per turn action creating a hyperdriver and then hyperdriver get crank in certain matchups is going to be better than just playing OG dash boost, like just aggro OG dash that starts with Teklo Pounder, or gets to start with, you know, like something with for your pistol. That is the question I have, is this character just worse than OG dash starting with Teklo Pounder? And if it is better to start, like, to have this hyperdriver thing, what unique things does this do over OG dash that puts it over just playing OG dash with Pounder, is like the question I have. So I'm pretty interested, because I also think OG dash cannot get fatigued. I think Max Nitro can get fatigued a lot easier than OG dash, because if I'm going to play a matchup to where I think I'm going to get fatigued, I can obviously play, you know, the items that I can attack multiple times with my pistol with OG dash, or just be a dedicated pistol playing transformable sideboard that I feel that Max Nitro will struggle with against those decks specifically. But he might be a little bit faster with the resource cheating, but we'll have to see. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the easiest deck that we'll see success with the Max Nitro, and then I think these are going to be the harder ones to build, but these have a higher ceiling, I believe, than this deck specifically. But that's going to be my set review. I can't wait to just try to play Singularity every single game at locals, and just like have fun playing a more of like a meme deck all at a time and become this demi hero. So that's my set review. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
you.